Spoštovani govorniki in panelisti, spoštovani gostje, dame in gospodje, dobrodošli na 11. panelu o turizmu v okviru Blejskega strateškega foruma 2025. Dear speakers and panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you at the 11th Tourism Panel of Bled Strategic Forum International Conference 2025. Po tem kratkem pozdravu v slovenščini bomo nadaljevali v delovnem jeziku Blejskega strateškega foruma, ki je angliščina. So after this brief introduction in Slovenian language, we will continue in the working language of Bled Strategic Forum, which is English. European tourism has high ambitions: sustainability, digital transformation, better quality of life, inclusion of local communities, and support for small businesses. Strategic documents describe European tourism as a model for global development, but practice often tells a different story. This panel will reflect on one key question: can European tourism remain competitive without losing its values? With the expertise gathered here today, I am certain this discussion will bring us closer to the answers we are all looking for. Today's session will flow in 3 parts. We will begin with opening addresses from Mr. Matjaž Han, Minister of the Economy, Tourism and Sport of the Republic of Slovenia, Ms. Maja Pakolaj, Director of the Slovenian Tourist Board, and Mr. Eduardo Santander, Executive Director of European Travel Commission. After that, we will move into a panel discussion with 5 distinguished guests, moderated by Dr. Peter Vostner from the Office of Republic of Slovenia for Macroeconomic Analysis and Development. And finally, we are looking to hear from you, our dear audience, in the interaction segment, where your questions and reflections will enrich this conversation. With this being said, I think we are more than ready to start today's program. Let us welcome with warm applause Minister of Economy, Tourism and Sport, Mr. Matjaž Han.
Naj bo tudi slovenski jezik del turizma, tako da spoštovana Maja Pakolaj, spoštovani Eduardo Santander, spoštovani imenitni gostje, dragi delavci v turizmu, soustvarjalci in prijatelji naše prelepe domovine. Moram povedati, da vas seveda prisrčno pozdravljam na tem panelu v okviru že 20. Blejskega strateškega foruma, ki se vsako leto odvija od enem od simbolov našega turizma, to je v slikovitem Bledu. Veseli me, da se organizatorji tega pomembnega mednarodnega dogodka zavedajo pomena turizma in so ga tudi zato v letošnjem letu vključili v program. Kajti, spoštovani, turizem ni le strateška gospodarska dejavnost in ena od pomembnejših gospodarskih panog, je tudi močno orodje miru. V teh časih zelo pomembno. Turizem seveda povezuje ljudi in krepi medkulturni dialog. Že Mark Twain je rekel, potovanje je usodno za presodke, nestrpnost in ozkoglednost. To je še, verjetno vsi se tega zavedamo, pomembno v teh časih, v tem tako imenovanem pobeglem svetu, kjer so absolutno medsebojni odnosi na veliki preizkušnji. Dragi moji, če se kje dobro vidi, kako pomemben je turizem za Slovenijo in za celotno Evropo, je prav tukaj ob tem prečudovitem jezeru, kjer se prepletata lepota narave in pa seveda tudi človeška ustvarjalnost. Izjemni gostinci, izjemni vinari in pa seveda preostali turistični delavci, iskrena hvala, za kaj delate za to našo Slovenijo, so zeleno in varno Slovenijo skupaj z gostoljubnimi domačini tudi v svetovnem merilu spremenili v turistično in gastronomsko destinacijo, na katero smo lahko seveda mi v tej Sloveniji zelo ponosni. Verjamem, da je v turizmu tudi občutek domačnosti in pa seveda predvsem sprejetosti, ki ga gost, ko odhaja iz naše domovine, na nek način odnese s seboj. In zato je pomemben vsak posameznik, od gostinca na Bledu, pa že, če želite, od gostinca v majhni vasi, do turističnega vodnika v Ljubljani in do zadnje natakarice v slovenski vasi. Res je, turizem prinaša gospodarsko rast, upam, da bo gospod Vostner potem to potrdil, odpira delovna mesta in pa seveda, kar je zelo pomembno, oživlja naše slovensko podeželje. A v prvi vrsti, in to najbolj veste vi, povezuje ljudi, gradi na nek način mostove med kulturami in ustvarja razumevanje v svetu, ki je zadnja leta, ali pa sploh zadnjo leto, precej razdeljen. Postavljeni smo bili v turizmu pred marsikateri izziv. Od covida do podnebnih sprememb, od vojn in pa seveda tudi do novih navad turistov. In kot odgovor na to, gospe in gospodje, nastaja naša na nek način slovenska zgodba, zgodba o trajnosti. To ni samo beseda, tega bi se seveda želeli, da to ni samo beseda, to je naš način življenja, od tako imenovanih zelenih certifikatov pa do znamke Slovenija Green. Seveda digitalizacija je absolutno pomembna na vseh področjih, še posebej na turizmu, ampak prav v turizmu ne sme nikdar preglasiti tistega, kar šteje. Maja Pak mi je prej rekla, Matjaž, nasmej se, prijazne besede, toplega pogleda, občutka, objema, če želite. To pomeni, da si na nek način dobrodošel. In poglejmo številke v turizmu, verjetno jih bojo potem kolegi še bolj predstavili, ki je tudi v svetovnem pomenu, kar se tiče varne Slovenije, postala pomembna turistična in gastronomska lokacija. Številke preprosto rastejo. Lani smo imeli rekord, letos tudi nadaljujemo v tej smeri. Po uradnih podatkih našega statističnega urada smo v prvih 6 mesecih samo od januarja do junija zabeležili 8% več prihodov in za 8% več prenočitev kot v enakem obdobju lani. Če gledamo ta pobegli svet, so te številke zelo dobre. Gostov je več, predvsem iz tujine. Nemci, Italijani, Avstrijci so naši stalni, jaz ne rekel gosti, ampak naši stalni prijatelji. Lepo pa je videti, da prihaja tudi več gostov iz Amerike in seveda tudi drugih oddaljenih držav. Če bomo v naši Sloveniji naredili še par domačih nalog, predvsem kar se tiče avio povezav, bo teh gostov še bistveno več. To pomeni, da se glas o naši prelepi Sloveniji širi. Ampak tukaj bodimo jasni, mi nočemo turizma samo poleti, ampak po zimi, ampak hočemo na nek način celotno zgodbo, ker samo ta je na nek način lahko pozitivna in tudi ekonomsko upravičena. Slovenija je lepa, gospe in gospodje, vsak mesec v letu. In če znamo nadgraditi, potem bodo uspehi samoumevni. Seveda brez investicij ne bo šlo, tako države kot tudi zasebnega sektorja. Tu moram reči, da sem lahko zadovoljen z Evropsko unijo. Evropska sredstva so pomagala, da smo prenovili nekatere nastanitve, razvili nove turistične produkte in jih še moramo, naredili smučišča majčkeno bolj zanimiva in seveda pred nami so še novi razpisi, da bomo turizem med sabo še bistveno bolj povezali, pa tudi, če želite, s kulturno dediščino, z lokalnimi zgodbami in v Sloveniji lahko v turizem vključimo tudi naš slovenski uspešen šport. Podobno se dogaja verjetno v Evropi. Turisti danes iščejo resnične, predvsem pa avtentične izkušnje. Kot sem že prej dejal, tudi turisti se na nek način spreminjamo. In vsi hočejo začutiti ljudi, kraje, kulturo, če želite. In tukaj imamo v naši Sloveniji med našimi ljudmi eno prednost. Čeprav to vem, da se vsaka država in vsi posamezniki, ki delajo v turizmu, trudijo. Pri nas se vzamemo čas, če želite, za gosta. V bistvu je to osnova. Mu znamo povedati neko zgodbo, ga, to, kar je zelo pomembno, sprejmemo za prijatelja in v bistvu pokažemo svoj odnos do ljudi. In to je seveda naš največji kapital. In to je nasploh največji kapital v turizmu. Tudi na evropski ravni se seveda zadeva v turizmu preoblikuje. Po pandemiji se je znova okrepil, kar je zelo zanimivo, obisk evropskih prestolnic. Tudi Ljubljana pred nami ima rekorde in tudi turisti so se spremenili s svojimi navadami. Naučili so me in dali podatek, da prevladujejo predvsem krajša potovanja, pogostejša potovanja in pa seveda potovanja povpraševanje po lokalnih izkušnjah. Turizem postaja del večje zgodbe o prilagodljivosti, vključevanju, predvsem pa tudi o odgovornosti. Ni dovolj, da samo povabimo goste, če mu nimamo kaj ponuditi, smo v težavah. Razmišljati moramo o tem, kako jih na nek način vključiti v skupnost, kako z njim deliti tudi naš način življenja, naše poglede in kako pričarati vsa ta nepozabna doživetja. Slovenski turizem, posledično seveda tudi evropski, je pred izzivi med tako imenovano rastjo, ker vsi imamo rad statistične podatke, da so grafi obrnjeni navzgor, ampak moramo tudi ohraniti neko ravnotežje med tako imenovanimi zelenimi zavezami in pa seveda med razvojem, med vrednotami in na koncu seveda tudi med konkurenčnosti. Ampak ključno je, da v tej naši državi obdržimo to slovensko identiteto. To je naša prednost in to je prednost vsake države. Ključno je, da v Sloveniji ohranimo našo prelepo naravo, kulturo in verjamem, da lahko ustvarimo pogoje za sodoben, odporen in pa seveda vključujoč turizem. Naj turizem tudi v tem pobeglem svetu ostane most med ljudmi, naj ostane turizem kot povezovalec med ljudmi, med narodi, med kulturami. Bolj, ko bomo ljudje povezani med sabo, bolj nesmiselna se nam bodo zdela vsa ta nesoglasja v tem norem svetu in pa vsi ti konflikti. Če kateri segment v gospodarstvu potrebuje mir, ga potrebuje turizem. In k temu seveda pomembno prispevajo tudi takšni dogodki na forumu, kjer se politika, gospodarstvo, strokovnjaki na nek način izmenjajo stališče. Pomembno je, da so pri svojih nagovorih predvsem iskreni in da si želijo tisto, kar se vsi skupaj želimo, mir in razvoj in solidarnost. Vsem vam udeležencem želim prijetno počutje v naši družbi. Želim si, da si to prelepo domovino še naprej ogledate, da jo spoštujemo in da smo med sabo povezani. Hvala vam lepa in srečno.
Thank you, Minister Han, for being here and for reminding us of the true essence of tourism. Next up, values or competitiveness. Let us welcome Ms. Maja Pakolaj, Director of the Slovenian Tourist Board.
Dear Minister Matjaž Han, esteemed guests and speakers, dear colleagues and friends, warm welcome to the Bled Strategic Forum. At this year's tourism panel, we are exploring a simple yet essential question. Can European tourism remain competitive without giving up its core values? Or to put it more directly, are values a barrier to competitiveness? My answer is clear. No, values are not a barrier. In fact, they are the foundation of our competitiveness, and they are the compass that must guide us forward. Let me explain why. According to the WTTC, tourism is once again one of the fastest growing sectors in the world. Europe alone accounted for 52% of all international arrivals last year. But this success isn't just about numbers. Europe leads because of something deeper, its values. We were among the first to understand tourism is not a goal in itself. It's a way to improve the quality of life for visitors and above all for the people who call destinations their home. Last year, 6 of the top 10 countries in the Global Travel and Tourism Index are in Europe, not just because of visitor volume, but because of what they stand for. World-class infrastructure, safety, sustainability, cultural richness, hospitality. That is something to be proud of. It reflects years of vision, dedication, and bold investment. But it also reminds us excellence is never guaranteed. It must be earned again and again. Today, European tourism faces growing pressure from geopolitical tensions and wars, inflation and labor shortages, to the accelerating effects of climate change and digital transformation. These aren't distant risks. They are real, present, and intensifying. And in these challenging times, we must hold on to what makes Europe truly competitive, our values. Sustainability, fairness, quality of life, respect for local cultures, cooperation, solidarity. We must stay true to this without losing our edge. And let me share a few reflections grounded in facts. Safety. Europe is still considered one of the safest regions for travelers. However, today there are more armed conflicts within European territory than in Latin America, as reported by the Geneva Academy. Sustainability. Europe is a global frontrunner in environmental and social sustainability, especially in tourism. Yet the continent is warming twice as fast as the global average. This calls for deep structural adaptation. Prosperity. Many EU countries are among the world's most advanced economies, but today none of the top 20 fastest growing economies are European. Our GDP growth is slowing. Potential recession is a real concern. Digitalization. The EU's Digital Decade 2030 strategy is delivering progress. But in tourism, most of the platforms shaping global demand, Booking, Airbnb, Expedia, Meta, are not European-owned, and this leaves us exposed and limits our strategic independence. And yet, if harnessed strategically, tourism can be one of the cornerstones of Europe's economic renewal and global competitiveness. According to the latest WTTC research, by 2035, European travel and tourism could generate an additional 4.5 million jobs, bringing the total to over 30 million. That's 1 in every 7 jobs. Tourism contribution to EU GDP is expected to grow to 2.3 trillion, nearly 11% of total GDP, and it is expected to outpace the growth of the broader economy. The sector is projected to grow at 1.8% annually compared to 1.3% for the overall economy. In terms of fiscal return, tourism could generate over 900 billion in annual tax revenues. Visitor spending is expected to reach 730 billion from international travelers and over 1.2 trillion in domestic travel. And moreover, tourism isn't just an economic sector. It is a force for stability, it is a force for growth and cohesion. So how do we unlock this potential? One word: cooperation. Europe is diverse. Its destinations compete, but also collaborate, especially when building the brand of Europe. The strong example is the joint marketing effort of European NTOs under the Visit Europe brand, managed and coordinated by the European Travel Commission. And I'm very pleased to have among us also this year Mr. Eduardo Santander. Regional cooperation is another strength. Just look at Alps Adriatic Amazing, a joint campaign by Austria, Croatia, and Slovenia that promotes our shared region on a long-haul markets. It is important to take European tourism competitiveness now to the next level. We must invest in strategic development-driven partnerships. It's not enough to agree on EU legislation. We need coordinated, effective implementation. Can we align on a common approach to short-term rentals? Can we agree on joint sustainability certification programs? Slovenia was among the first countries to implement a comprehensive national system for sustainability certification, and today most European destinations have developed similar approaches. But the challenge ahead is to continue encouraging and supporting the private sector in its efforts towards sustainable operations. Right now, sustainability is still too often seen as a burden rather than an opportunity. So what connects all of these challenges, from safety and sustainability to economic shifts, digital dependency, and implementation gaps? Our ability to respond and to compete depends on how firmly we stand in our values. Values are strategic assets in uncertain times. They're differentiators in a crowded global marketplace. If safety is at risk, it is our value of solidarity that builds trust and resilience. And if the climate is changing, it is our commitment to sustainability that drives innovation and future-proof growth. If growth is slowing, it is our belief in fairness and shared prosperity that ensures lasting stability. If global platforms threaten our resilience, it is our commitment to agility and smart regulation that gives Europe a competitive edge. And if regulation isn't implemented, it is our value of responsibility that turns policy into progress. In short, the stronger the headwinds, the more vital the compass, and that compass is our values. And this brings me to what may be the most important truth of all. Tourism is shaped by people, by all of us. It grows from thousands of daily choices. What kind of tourism we build, where we invest our time and energy, who we choose to work with, and whether we wait for change or lead it. If we truly believe that values are the path to long-term success, then we must live them. European tourism will remain competitive not despite our values, but because we choose to live them boldly, consistently, and together. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Maja Pacolai. And next, we are pleased to hear from Mr. Eduardo Santander, Executive Director of the European Travel Commission. Welcome on stage.
Dobro jutro. Good morning, everyone. I have to say something before we start. I really feel the love. And I feel the love because they say that love is the only thing that grows when you share it. And I feel a lot of love have been shared since last year, since my first invitation here. And it was amazing to come back to Bled yesterday. And I have to also share my last night experience. I think Slovenia has the loudest wake-up call. I had the loudest lightning and thunderstorm waking me up at 4 in the morning, which was great because I could prepare my presentation. And I have to say that I'm more than grateful for being here. So I would like to start thanking Minister Hahn, Secretary of State, thank you for having me. I saw your horse in the airport. Not your horse, but like how many efforts you're putting in also diversifying. I remember your speech last year, explaining how important also the contact with nature is in Slovenia. And I was very glad to see that the things are progressing here. Maja, my dear friend, thank you so much for Slovenian Tourism Board, and happy birthday, 30th birthday to you and to all your team. I know this is a huge collective effort what Slovenian Tourism Board is doing. But let me walk through a few things. We have to confront a big question. And thank you, Maja, for setting the scene. What do we want to be? The first or the best? Because there are two different things. Do we want to be the first in, overnight expenditure, bed nights and so on? Or do we want to be the best in so many things previously mentioned, such as infrastructure, seamless transport, balancing tourism, safety, digitalization? Because there are two different questions, and there are two different approaches for that. And it's true that everybody's a little bit on transition, trying to accommodate and trying to, make everybody happy. And it's a quest that is going to take decades, and it's an effort that is going to take a lot of discussion still. But we have to lead, and congratulations, Slovenia, for leading the change. So, in my presentation today, I will give you some highlights of the latest initiatives on positioning Europe competitively and support the sustainable development of European destinations. So, you know who we are, but nevertheless, let me remind you that, thank you, Maja, also for mentioning us before. We are an organization pretty old, almost 80 years old, but we represent the national tourism authorities of 35 sovereign countries of Europe, not only of the European Union, we also have members from outside the European Union. And our work is very much rooted on cooperation and collaboration. Maja was your last word too. And this has been the case for many, many years with a lot of success, especially those that came later into or caught the train of tourism a little bit later. And we have this disparity of speeds on tourism development, and ETC has been trying, to harmonize and help those that need it the most. So first, let me share with you ETC insights of the States of Europe of 2025. Please apologize, some numbers for the summer are still not available. However, we've been measuring the temperature, and I will try to explain those as best as I can. So let me start quantifying tourism. Tourism has a remarkable resilience and a strong performance in 2025 so far. It is the year of full recovery for all those years. The minister mentioned, the recovery too, but it's been a year of we can finally talk about full recovery with, showing positively trends and arrivals and nights by plus almost 3% and plus 1.3 on overnights. So there is a steady and sustained interest in European destinations internally, in the internal market, within the European market, but also abroad. The recovery story, again, it's not uniform. There is a little bit of a lack of symmetry, it's asymmetrical. We see still the Southern European destinations, gaining a lot of tourism despite everything that we see on the media with problems of massification, problems of natural catastrophes and events, but they're still running very much ahead. Very good news, there is a lot of momentum for Central and European travel markets. We see that Finland, Lithuania, Latvia, Slovakia, and Estonia, as countries neighboring Ukraine, are fully recovered, which was one of our biggest targets and biggest objectives in the last 3 years. And importantly, and this is something that I would like, because this is the biggest difference from my speech last year, the spending attitude and the spending performance of European travelers, whether they are from Europe or outside of Europe, has changed, and has changed in a huge increase. People are spending much more. The spending is growing faster than the arrivals itself, and this is where many destinations have to calibrate also their price politics. As we see, traveling is becoming very, very expensive for all of us. You'll probably notice that during the holiday period, and we need to again start qualifying tourism too, and see, when is enough? When do we have also to put some kind of regulation? When not? As we still seeing a lot of challenges that persist there. We have the first challenge, as you know, in many places, capacity pressures and community concerns. Even talking to the taxi driver yesterday into Bled, say it's just such a nice arrival at Bled if you don't stay in traffic. Because sometimes even coming into Bled can become like a much longer trip. They say it's such a short trip from Ljubljana airport, but there is only one road. So we'll have to calibrate that infrastructure too, looking at the minister here. No pressure. Climate change. This is the most dangerous, the most urgent action that we could do. Climate change mitigation actions. And again, Slovenia has been at the forefront of climate adaptation and, trying to educate people with new travel habits. We cannot change that, but we can change the people traveling into our destination and their behavior. That's our role. Again, our role is very important here. Each and every in this room has a little thing to say or to do. Last but not least, political or geopolitical uncertainty. We have, of course, running conflicts, and the US administration also causing volatility in trade, causing volatility in stability of governments, and this is obviously affecting tourism too. Now, while the challenges remain, I would like to come with some green Slovenian hope too, and I see Astrid also in full green today. And I think if tourism can always transport a message of not only peace, understanding, but also of hope. As you know, there are a lot of things that are changing too in travel habits. People are, we are all changing. We were changed by the pandemic, we were changing by digitalization, we were changed by AI. So the most important change that we observe at the European Travel Commission is there is a lot of demand for lesser known destinations. Obviously people are not, the thing that a tourist doesn't want to see on holiday is another tourist. So somehow we became very hedonist and very egoist, and we would like to have the place for ourselves, which sometimes is not possible. But we see that 55% of Europeans are now planning holidays into less popular or off the beaten track locations. Now, we are starting in September. For some of us, like myself, it's the school holidays are over, but for many others, this is when the season of traveling starts. So traveling off season is becoming one of the biggest trends, not only among pensionists, not only among people that maybe are not working or something, but even young people are redistributing their holidays in a way that hasn't been seen before, with an increase of 10 million foreign arrivals between January and February outside the season. That's what we have observed. We were talking just over breakfast about the next shift, the geopolitical and the demographic shift. Asia, and we have to look into the East because China is still showing strong recovery, something that has to be taken into account. And in general, all the Asian markets, we're talking with Austria this morning about India too. Only the Chinese have an increase of 10% already in Europe overall year on year. So now I'd like to talk about repositioning Europe's global brand. As Maya mentioned, Europe needs to talk about how do we want to introduce ourselves. Do we want to be the inspiration of the past, like a catalog where people could choose between this route, the others, this grand tour, the classic thing, or do we want to be something special, something more inspirational, something more unified? I think that one of the things that the brand Europe can do, and it's doing right now, and for the first time in history, as you may know, we have a EU commissioner dedicated, fully committed to sustainable transport and tourism. And this is good news, because we've been fighting for that for over 12 years. And this branding exercise is on Toplice's agenda. Probably you've been consulted as Slovenian Tourism Board too, but it aims to support Europe's leadership in tourism worldwide, as it's not that we are losing tourists, we are losing competitiveness to your world. There are destinations doing a better job, serving better for less cost and adapting much quicker to the geopolitical changes. We want also to attract the right travelers. How do we do that? You know, we cannot put a policeman in the airport saying, you look like a good tourist. You don't. You stay. You come in. So we are targeting those who value sustainability, culture, quality, and beyond promotion, we are educating demand. And this is not prescribing. It's explaining, not complaining about the problems that we have, the problem that a tourist can create, but educating demand with our long-term tourism goals. So this is how we create, unlock an unexpected upgrade. This is a narrative that we've been working on for the last 5 years, and finally it's been deployed now. We know that travelers want now to relax, enjoy, and feel inspired, and we are flipping the script. Travel should be something mindful, responsible. Travel isn't a sacrifice. It should be an upgrade, a joy. So we're trying to amplify the visibility for a wider range of destinations, particularly those that are not so well known yet. This new narrative is based in 4 pillars: travel off season, go off beat, travel green, and stay local. Some of them are very, very familiar to you, some less. Some less are just basic words. But when it comes, you know, to the selling point, to those workshops, B2B workshops, where you have to sell and you have to explain to your hoteliers how many people will come, you have also to come back, you know, to a holistic approach that allows everybody to be included in this campaign. Let me give you a glimpse of what it is about. I think the video should start.
Everyone loves an unexpected upgrade. Upscale your stay in ways you'd never imagine. Unlock a richer experience with fewer crowds and more affordable options.
I went to Europe in the fall to indulge in the wine harvest season. I learned the secrets of winemaking in France, gazed at the unique landscapes, and toasted new, long-lasting friendships.
I swapped the bustle of the big city for Graz, Austria's hidden gem. I exchanged long lines for exclusive views and crowd-free cultural heritage.
I biked the Art Cities route in Belgium for a front row seat and priority access to culture and nature. I took the smarter route through the fragrant countryside.
I loved Orma's Chestnut Festival in Greece. Dining and celebrating with the locals, I could savor secret recipes and unknown flavors. I uncovered the charm of local living.
Whether you explore off-season, go off-beat, travel green, or love local, visit Europe responsibly for an unexpected upgrade.
So the campaign invites, of course, tourism destinations, DMOs, but also private sector to be very actively on them. And it also the goal is for it to be a pan-European and pan-industry initiative, bringing together all diverse things. And you are all invited, small or big partners. It is very important to now to mention the importance of collaboration again before my time runs out. As we are gradually rolling out this campaign, and we are looking for supporting partners, and this is not a sales job what I'm doing, and we're trying to explain we have funding from the European Union that we would like to share with you. And if there is a value proposition, whether it's like coordinated by the Slovenian Tourism Board or by the private sector here in Slovenia, we definitely invite you, to contact us and to explore the possibilities for an unexpected upgrade for Slovenia too. Now, let me showcase before we finish how important the joint promotional efforts and again to the work cooperation collaboration, because we have a collaboration here in the room. Let's keep this one. We have a very important campaign that was done this year, notably Slovenia as a key partner in this ETCC co-funded Alps Adriatic Amazing campaign together with Croatia and Austria. I think it talks the invitation here of Austria, and obviously your Croat colleagues always go hand in hand in their markets. But this is showing value. This is showing the power of scaling your effort, the power of investment. And if this will succeed, and we are applying this only in the US market, it's something that we really would like to explore for, the Asian markets, Latin America, and beyond, as we conceive the campaign as a global campaign too. Now, to finish, and because I cannot talk about tourism and future of tourism without mentioning the sustainable transformation. I was talking to Stefan from Austria about innovation and how we cannot put in compartments every single thing, but everything has to be cross-cutting, and how difficult that is. As you know, sometimes I was joking with him yesterday saying, sometimes we ask a basketball team to play ice hockey. And how do you do that, without training them accordingly, without, maybe giving them a new coach, will be even showing them the rules. But, we know that it is very, 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 very important that the sustainable transformation will happen with the input of tourism or without it. And we know that this is related to transfer. Remember last year I brought the example of the lasagna in tourism. I'm not going to use that today. But remember that the base of that lasagna is still being transportation. Transportation is undergoing one of the biggest transformations of the history. And we know that this is going to determine also the way tourism will perceive and will be run in the decades to come. Now, last but not least, we have published, this is very important, as we've seen, again, wildfires, we've seen floods, we've seen heat waves. Climate action planning and frameworks for NTOs are essential. We cannot escape our fate of a climate emergency. Please, your action matters, and for that, ETC has been helping you, helping everybody who wants to be on board on this, with 10 detailed steps, from committing to climate action, to customize templates and global case studies to help you create climate change plans according to your own national frameworks. I promise to finish now. Slovenia's climate adaptation strategy for tourism, it's been like a cornerstone for many others and for this project of ETC. And I'd love to thank one more time Juala to Slovenia also for being part of Chapter Earth and for helping and running this strategy for the next years. Last but not least, and for those more dedicated thing, a global destination sustainability movement, we have released, because in this kind of complex lasagna of regulation too from the EU. Sometimes look at the Brussels and these bureaucrats, they only want this, that, and that from us. We have creating this also guide on new EU sustainability regulations to help you understand, what you have to comply for, and also to adapt quick. That's it from me. Sorry that I went a little bit over time. I can only say that it is immensely invigorating to be here, not now for the beauty of the Bled, but the conversations around this forum are not only important, but essential. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you next year again here.
Many thanks also to Mr. Santander for his contribution, but this is not the last you're hearing from him today, luckily for us. With this, we are now moving to the central part of today's session. This is our panel discussion. I will introduce our panelists, who we will bring on stage in just a minute, but for now they will be staying in their seats. We already met Mr. Santander. Joining him will be Mateusz Franges, State Secretary at the Ministry of Economy, Tourism and Sport, Ms. Jana Apich, Director of Green Destinations, Ms. Astrid Stiharnik-Staudinger, the CEO of Austria Tourism, and Dr. Slavko Ažman, the Head of Business Management at Porsche Slovenia. Big round of applause for all of them, please. Thank you. But before we start to guide us through this exciting discussion, it is my big pleasure to hand the floor to our moderator, Dr. Peter Wustner. Dr. Wustner, please, welcome on stage. With rapid changes in global tourism and a strong, yes. So the changes are real, they are rapid. And today we place a strong emphasis especially on values and competitiveness. What are the key perspectives and angles that we should have in mind before we listen to today's debate? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Minister, State Secretary, Maya, excellent, and all of you. It's a real pleasure to be here. I sometimes have a feeling I'm invited to spice things up a bit. That's what I'll try to do, primarily in order to kind of pave the way for discussion that will follow. We have some excellent speakers from which I think we can really benefit. So without further ado, let me dive in with a couple of slides. As I said, the whole motive why we will be discussing later on is really to understand how we can make things happen. Because good wishes will not bring us far, right? We can talk about values, how nice we are, how tourism matters, but at the end, the bottom line needs to be green. And I think that's something that I will, through my presentation, try to highlight a bit in the context of not the short-term view, but in terms of medium and long-term trends, which I'll try to highlight somewhat. I'm not a specialist for tourism, so I looked a couple of things in terms of what are the big mega trends right now that will shape the future of tourism. And I've noticed one which I wanted to start with. Eduardo mentioned that. The unprecedented uncertainty, which indeed is the topic of the whole Bled Strategic Forum, the runaway world. And you can see that this is not, of course, tourism specific, and also the recommendation that follows is not tourism specific. And that is, in the bottom, you will see, I took this from Data Appeal. It's not just about thinking how to make the whole tourism sector more resilient. It's also about adapting our strategies. Because if you, for example, when we were presenting the productivity report, the same kind of recommendation was done to companies in whatever sector, which is that you need to think about multiple scenarios. Not just about crisis scenario, but also in terms of where the possible big gains, big wins are. And I think that's something that is not something close to the way how companies and the whole societies and the industry has been functioning. So The minister said before that I might comment a bit in terms of how we're doing, and indeed I will. As everybody said, things are going in a direction that we like. The minister said, as long as things go up, it's good. Well, it's now it's coming. Now it's coming. When the minister saw me in the morning, he said, "Oh, this guy." We heard at the level of EU, in Austria, wherever you see, the tourism has picked up, but it has picked up in terms of physical numbers, overnight stays, etc. These are. Yeah, okay, sorry. On the right, you can see these are the kind of articles that you can see in our media. We are on the right path. Number of tourists is going up. Not just that, if you look at the balance sheets of tourist firms for 2024, everybody is doing great. Both firms in hospitality, in food and beverages, and also self-employed are doing better than before. So, all great. Now, my colleague Mojca Koprivnikar-Šuštašić is coming out shortly with this kind of an analysis at our institute. So this is a bit of a pre-pick of what the key messages will be. There is a bit of a but, though, and that but, even on the physical side, is that the average length of stay is short. That was mentioned. We have, by the minister, we have the issue of sustainability, and the one that I would underline in particular, that we are seeing increasing share of overnight stays in simpler, generally cheaper accommodation facilities. Now that's the one that I link to the bottom line, because if the bottom line won't provide us with enough force, capacity to invest, to transform, to make us, good and nice, then it won't work. And that brings me to the issue which really was, if I remember back when our tourism strategy was being prepared, and I think that's one of the better strategies that we have. I think it's pressing on all the right buttons. But even when it was launched, I remember it was said we need to move beyond the physical indicators. We need to stop bragging about this year we have 3.2% more tourists, because I don't think that really nails it. That's not what we really want, right? As tourists don't want to see other tourists. I mean, what we want is to have value. We want to have, I would say, we need to create value out of it. And even at the end, if I'm very direct, we need to make money out of it. Sorry to say, it doesn't sound perhaps that nice, but that's how it is. So, what does the data tell us about the expenditure of tourists? This is the same data that the minister has cited from the statistical office. And they are also going up. Right, so this is the expenditure of tourists, foreign in dark red and domestic in light red. And the overall number is going up. So in principle, that's up until 2023, as you can see, the official number. Now there is one caveat that I would like to underline. If you look at the dark red from 2019, so basically since we have that, since we are trying, since in the last period, overall number, also in the economic side, are going in the right direction. So that's the good news. Now, the thing I'm a bit careful about is, if you look at the expenditure, overall expenditure that comes out of, doesn't work, from foreign tourists is actually flat over the last period. And if you look at the data that we can, now we're coming in the zone where we're not really sure what happened in 2024. The data is still not there. But if we look at the consumption patterns, we can actually see that overall the number of income appears to be going up, but the income from foreign tourists is flat at best, or even perhaps even going down. And that's something, no alarm, nothing to be dramatic about. It's just that I think we need to be careful, because that is something, these are the kind of things that we should be looking at, thinking on about we should change to achieve, so that we will actually be able to deliver all the nice things that tourism is there to deliver. So I think sometimes, I remember going back at my student years, going to the faculty, the best professor said, you need to write, ask the right questions. And I think we need to think very well what do we really want to focus on, what really is the problem. And I will, of course, I'm not one of the panelists, I will be the one asking questions. So I will leave that to a greater extent to the panelists later on. But I would like to highlight some, in particular, longer term issues that I think we're perhaps not being attentive about enough. The first one being demography. And here I'm showing a picture of, these are Eurostat population projections for all the European countries until 2100. So for the next 75 years. And when we talk about tourism, how great it is, etc., I think we need to understand that working age population, save for Malta, Sweden, and Luxembourg, will shrink, and it will shrink in some cases dramatically. In the case of Slovenia, working age population will shrink by 20%. So there will be 250,000 less people who will be able to work. Sure, you can say, it's 75 years away, who cares? Because we are already in a transition part towards that. And, and when you build, roads, when you build accommodation, when you build, energy lines, energy grids, etc., this is the time perspective that you need to think about. When the minister goes to the government, these are the kind of dilemmas that So we need to think, where will, in this shrink world in terms of capacity, how many people will we have, what in that context the position of tourism will be. And just to say, if you look, sometimes we look just at the percentages, and I think 20%. If you look also at the absolute numbers, for example, Italy, there will be 9 million Italians less able to work in 75 years. 9 million. That's 4.5 times of this country, everybody. Poland, 8 million. Germany, 7.5. Spain. So I mean, this is huge, and I think it will come. It's not. I shouldn't even say it will come, because it's already here. We're already on that path. We're already feeling that in the labor market, and we need to think about it. Now, in order to think about it, I think is that if we will want to have people working in tourism, the minister said all the nice people, etc. These nice people will need to have high quality of living, high standard, high wages. And the only way to pay for high wage is to have highly productive tourism sector. Now, if you look at the figure, this is real value added, so real productivity of the accommodation and food service activities. There are some countries which are gaining ground. In particular, Croatia is doing spectacularly if you look at the last, 30 years. And there is a tendency that those that are lagging behind in terms of productivity are actually catching up faster. But for the majority of us, and that includes Austria, Slovenia, and the EU, the productivity rates or the levels of productivity tend to be more or less flat. Now, you could say that's not that dramatic, but the problem is that if you have a shrinking workforce, and relative productivity of tourism sector relative to the national productivity is actually going down, as you can see on the right, it means it will be harder and harder to provide wages that will attract enough people to work in tourism sector. You can say, these are economists, etc., etc. But that's, these are the numbers, and it won't fly. If all of us, if we don't solve this problem, tourism sector will go down, not because of the values, etc., but because it's inevitable. Let me rephrase that. It's absolutely, we can avoid it. It's not inevitable at all, but provided that we do the right things and that we are focused on things that matter. And one of the preconditions that we will get there is that we rise the productivity of the tourism sector. Why? Well, this is the data from Eurostat. The higher the productivity, the higher the wages. And more importantly for this country, if you look at the data, I took just the figures from the balance sheets of firms working in accommodation, and only those that have more than 10 employees, because there is, if you go below 10, there is. And you can see that some of the firms in Slovenia actually have very high productivity. You know, we have firms that are in tourism sector that create value per employee above 100,000 euros. So it can be done. That's my point. You know, we can do it. It's just we need to understand that this is something that we need collectively work towards. So the obvious question, how do we do that? Now, I will of course leave a lot of that to the panelists. Just a couple of things. One, and I'll link myself to Eduardo's comment. I think future-proofing is something that, you know, demography was just one dimension, of course. There are, you know, climate change, etc. And it's literally, I would argue, impossible for each individual stakeholder to do it alone, to future-proof. You know, you need to have someone that helps you out with that. For example, our, you know, ski lifts, etc. You know, where to put. You know, it's something that, you know, you need to have someone, you know. So that's why I will argue. Hopefully, I think collaboration has been mentioned a couple of times already. That's something that is a precondition for anything. But going beyond that, you know, this same data appeal about the megatrends is talking about sustainability and the technology, etc. I return to that. But I think the key ones that I would underline in this introduction is the personalization and the importance of experiences, because that's what creates value. That's what the tourism will be ready to pay for. Of course, the tourist has to be happy, and, you know, I'm impressed, etc. But he also has to pay, because otherwise that equation before doesn't close, okay? And it's from this angle that I would encourage the panel and later all of us that when we're hanging out in front at the terrace to think how we can make this extra step. You know, it's not just one or the other. That is something which I think is particular to tourism. If you do one thing and I'm your neighbor and I go in the other direction, it won't work because neither will be able to charge the price that would like. That's why tourism is to a much greater extent a collective action issue. I'll return to that in a minute. But before I do, let us just take a short peek about how we are doing in terms of digitalization. And good news. So on the bottom you have what happened between 2022 and 2024. This is digital intensity of firms with more than 10 employees in accommodation and food services, which have high or very high digital intensity index. This is 12 different indicators collected by Eurostat. And Slovenia has done a remarkable progress since 2022 to 2024, one of the second biggest leap forward, so we're now among the leading group. So you might ask, how can then be that when I was making a presentation at the Tourism Days exactly 1 year ago, we were below average? Well, there is the old trick that sometimes has been used in our previous country, which is that there are actually two methodologies, which Eurostat changes interchangeably. So last year it was data intensity version number 3. This year it's data intensity index version number 4. And version number 4, where we were very good at, does not have this advanced the use of advanced digital technologies like cloud, like big data, etc. Now, let me just go back for a second. Now think personalization. Think experiences. You know, whether you use computers and you have access to high speed, if you want to personalize, it's the big data that matters. It's, these are the kind of stuff that, not from today till tomorrow because it's hard, etc. But it's probably in this direction that we can start thinking big, right? In terms of 5, 10 years, that we really kind of target the right tourists and we kind of really make, kind of personalized packages, customization. It's something that we have talked about 10 years ago, big plans, how we'll be doing that. Well, where do we stand on that? So that's version number 3, the one I'm not showing. We continue to be where we were. I mean, that's something that in this sector are not doing. And that's something that I would argue you need to change, or rather we need to change collectively because again, as I said last year, this is hard to do. But digitalization is not about computers. Digitalization is about understanding what we're selling, who we're selling it to, what data do we use in order to be able to better target and then adjust and monitor what's going on and continually being, on top of the things that will be going on. Because things will happen, as I started, some, new war will come out, new, I don't know, who knows, climate crisis of some sort, and we'll need to adjust. The more data we'll have, the better we'll be able to adjust. Now, my final slide, there's one more. Eduardo, again, I liked your presentation, so I'm citing you often. It's the word transformation that I really like. I use it in innovation, I use it in tourism, because I think that's what it's about. We need to transform. It's not just about growing, and of course, from company perspective, that's how it is. But from systems perspective, we need to transform the way, that's what I would argue, how we function. And the problem with tourism, as I said, is that there are so many stakeholders. So that's why it is really hard to kind of, it's hard everywhere, let's be clear. It's very hard to transform. But I would argue it's particularly hard to transform within tourism sector because of the, the big numbers of stakeholders. Although I have to say that understanding of the need to collaborate is very high. So in a way, I'm not so sure that it actually, and we have good basis. People intuitively feel that that these things matter. So I don't want to push the argument too far. So if you look at the OECD's recommendations in terms of in tourism trends and policies from 2024, recommendation number 1: promote coordinated action. Promote coordinated action. Now, based on the work that I did with 2 professors from the UK, this was more about in the field of innovation, not tourism as such, but I think it applies nonetheless. If you want to really be successful in all the points that I mentioned until now and really be coordinated, I think the key words, as far as Slovenia at least is concerned, are direction. We need to decide in which direction for each of the destinations we're going. We need someone to orchestrate, because you need someone to lead, because it doesn't happen on its own. Sometimes I get the question, so what can a small firm do? Well, it's hard for one individual firm to change anything. It can connect with others, sure. But in order to really transform, you need to also, probably you need to have the big muscles in it. You need to have decision makers, etc. So I think, that orchestration is fine, and that will lead you to then collaboration, which, and I think this is the key point, sometimes I think in this country we have good examples. It's not true that we are not able to cooperate. Even the hard data is saying on innovation cooperation, we are among the best in Europe. So it's not true that we're not able to cooperate. It is true, though, that we are changing directions very often, and we never reach the critical mass that would lead us to collective action, so that we really rebrand ourselves. We don't stick to, when we decide we go in one direction, then 3 years down the line, we change everything, we go in there, and then, of course, you can't rebrand yourself. The key of rebranding is consistency, right? Simplicity of the message and consistency of your message. So that is, that's something that I would argue that we need to work towards. Now, my final slide is, I said that, we have different scenarios for tourism, some of which potentially are also that tourism will go down. But I would do a caveat for that as well. It says time is up. For some places, tourism is really critical. And in countries like Austria, in countries like Slovenia, tourism is predominantly a rural issue. And for remote places, tourism is a decisive element. And that's something that I think we need to be careful about. It's not just if in Ljubljana we stay without tourism, it won't be, it will have serious repercussions, but there will be other things that people will be able to do. In some places, people will not have that kind of an easy choice. And that's something that I think we also need to consider. I should have ended on a more positive note, shouldn't I? Yeah, okay. And that I will leave to the great panel that is coming up. Yeah, okay, we're good. Dear panelists, can I invite you up on the stage? Super. All good? All good. Okay, so let's make it even better. I would like, Eduardo, to start with you. Thank you for the excellent presentation. And let me just link back to what you said. You said that Europe will need to decide whether we want to be the first or the best, which I found really nice. How would you say, are we really doing on the EU level? I mean, would you say that, tourism in Europe is a success story? And in particular, to what extent do you think that is translated in what we want at the end in terms of, social impact, in terms of quality of life of the people? And also you said we want to rebrand ourselves. Where do you see the biggest opportunities on that front? Where so that, we're listening to you, you have a good overview in terms of Europe. We also kind of see you, as an organization to kind of pull strings together. What would you recommend to us?
Thanks, Peter. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I'm a fan of simplicity, okay? I'm gonna try to simplify also because I was really taking so many notes about your presentation because, the mix of economic data and tourism and geopolitical transformation, demographic transformation is key to understand tourism. But I'm going to simplify it in another way. According to ChatGPT, the most famous dish in Slovenia is potica, right? Well, let's take potica as an example. It's a symbol of family, tradition, hospitality. Every family does it in a different way. Every region puts different things inside, put different sauces. So a little bit like tourism. Everybody does it a little bit different, but in the end, everybody likes potica. Now, I'm going to allow myself, Peter, to give a little bit of a recipe for what I think the European potica should be for the next decade to come. Because it requires a lot of factors that I made a little distillation from your presentation, making my notes here. First of all, and I know many other speakers will talk about it, but we have to start certified and monitor scientifically. You cannot claim that you are the most sustainable, the most accurate in that and the other, or the most visited. That doesn't work any longer. We need to find formulas of harmonizing measurement. We're working on that at the European level. It's tough. It's very tough, to get all those databases, streamlined in a way that we can, use them. Second, and you mentioned, cultivate the workforce. From nothing comes nothing. And we know that very well, and you mentioned the issue of yield in the end. I mean, tourism has to become much more effective. The transformation has to create more value in a way that we can pay people better. It's not rocket science. People need to be treated better, of course, but at the end of the day, they also have to pay a rental or pay a mortgage or have a living. Third ingredient for this Santander's potica. Prioritize communities. It's being clear that this, for first time in history, rejection of tourism comes from a very fragile base. Is that in that triangle of visitor, resident, and entrepreneur, we're lacking a common ground that I think the NTO could fill. The government should fill, with dialogue platforms and consultation process. Fourth ingredient, align visitors. For a period of time, we always were prescribing, this is what you're going to see in Slovenia, this is what you see in Bled. We have to align, we have to ask them first, what they expect, what is going to be, what is really what they want to do. And this requires a lot of data too, by the way. Needless to say that we have in that ingredient a pinch of salt, we have to protect our heritage and nature. We have to produce and consume responsibly. This is something that, the famous greenwashing claims is something that is starting to be regulated. Calibrate infrastructure. I was making the joke with the road to Bled, but it's true that we have many bottlenecks. The aviation talks a language, they increase capacity in the air, but boom, then you arrive to the airport and there's no capacity, or there's not enough taxis, there's not enough ground transportation. The old cities remain the little medieval places, little squares, so they don't grow with their capacity. Eighth ingredient is govern effectively, looking at obviously our politicians. Is we need this to be a long-term investment, Peter, and long-term investment take a lot of bravery. It takes a lot of guts to say, I'm not doing that for my next elections, I'm doing that for my people in the next 2-3 decades. And as we live in this, how do they call it today in the media, perma-crisis, I like that word, is that we need to embed resilience all the time in what we're doing, because whatever we're doing can be shaky within seconds. And this has to be based in, of course, economic changes, social changes, environmental changes, cultural changes that we cannot. You mentioned some of them, Peter. How are we doing it in Europe? Is just trying to create a platform of dialogue. I think the period is over of working in silos. I'm working only, like Austria competes with Slovenia for, there's enough tourists for everybody. It's time to share the cake. And maybe to just wrap it up a little bit, we have, because you mentioned demographics, and this is something that on top of the lightning and thunderstorms in Bled, the things that keeps me awake is the change of demographics in Europe. We are in a demographic winter. We know the baby boomers are starting to stop traveling. There was the one that built Europe after the war. There was wealth, there was built state, people had properties. Now the young people don't have two basic human needs, which is access to employment or employment with dignity and access to housing. If we don't cover these issues, we'll have many problems to come. They will come through social rejection, but not only about tourism, about economic elites, about, and there will be uprising. We see it in the political landscape, with every parliament being now a rainbow parliament, of impossible coalitions just to keep the status quo going, but that will not last. At a certain point, this will collapse, and we will have to reinvent Europe. Coming back to your presentation there, we need to look a lot into the workforce. Human interactions are everything in this industry. Unless we take care of that, we will start seeing the crumbles falling from a system that has been feeding and making, you say, is rural thing, tourism in Slovenia and Austria, many other places. But it's not only rural, it's small and medium-sized enterprises driven. 85% of European tourism entrepreneurship is small and medium-sized enterprises, mostly micro enterprises, family-owned businesses. So how do we care about them? Is through this capillarization of platforms of cooperation. Accor, Hilton, Airbnb, Booking, they don't need our help. They'll find their lawyers to always navigate regulation and so on. But the little hotel in the hill of Bled over there, when he or she is confronted, to a transformative process, he needs the help, or she needs the help to transform. So how do we know is to use the resources more to the people that they need most?
Thank you. Just to make clear, I'm actually quite an optimist in terms of potential for Slovenia, because I think we are quite lucky in terms of where things are going in the medium to long term, because people will be asking for what we can potentially offer. So just to make clear that it's Jana, I want to go next to you. Eduardo said, Eduardo Spotica, maybe we should remember that. He also said, what do people want? Because what people want, that's what they're willing to pay for. And presumably, one would argue that sustainability is one of those things. And in particular, I think, among the youth, which should give us kind of, optimism again, that things will be going strongly in that direction. But is that something that you see in practice, sustainability being something that we build on as an opportunity, that we create value on, that we charge it for? Or is there more of a greenwashing, don't throw the towel on the floor so that I don't need to wash them?
I think it's on more level. Sorry. Well, I think it's on a little bit more levels, you know. The problem with sustainability, it's not the problem, but the fact is that the destinations who need sustainable management are the ones with the bigger problems, are the ones who have, you know, who we are seeing now on TV that protest against tourism, and that is actually the reality on the result, that they were not managed in a sustainable way, that they didn't think about what the volume of tourism we actually want, how should we manage it, who we should attract, and so on. So this happens. So the biggest need of managing destinations is where they're in sustainable world is where the biggest problems are. And that is also where it is the hardest to do. So, and I think that we are a little bit past that thinking that sustainability is something I become more sustainable. I get a label and I will get, you know, that will be my marketing opportunity. I hope we are getting past that and we are understanding sustainability as a must and something that we need to embed in all the levels of our management. Either it's a destination or it's a business, it doesn't matter, because if we don't do that, then all the problems that tourism also brings, it brings a lot of added value, it brings a lot of, you know, opportunities, especially in regions where it's needed, but it brings a lot of issues and problems and pressures. And if they're not managed in the right way, if they're not managed sustainably, then these problems really arise. And this transformation that we are talking about, you know, how to do that. One thing, the tricky part with transformation is that if you really do a transformation, there's no going back. And this is a problem where we are always many times are doing. Yeah, well, we go in this direction. If it works, we follow it. If we don't, we go back. But with transformation, you know, transforming means that you change, that you cannot go back anymore. And that is where the problem actually begins, when people are understanding that and they go as far to one extent. So that was one of, like, you know, is a certification one-time thing that I achieve and that's it. It's not, you know, certification, it's a tool which helps you move forward and make you grow. So is it a sustainability something that adds value? Of course it does, because it teaches destinations and businesses what's important. You know, how to protect your nature, how to invite guests in, and how to bring them closer to the culture and all those things, and, you know, protect your nature. But the one thing that I think we are really not talking enough, it's about the local communities. We need to understand that tourism occupies space of locals. You know, it's not just a space of a hotel room or a hotel lobby, but it's a space of the whole city. And this is where the problems began, because if this destination is not managed sustainably, means that it's not done hand in hand with the locals who say, no, this is enough. I don't want to have so many people on my streets. This is my city. Then all this happens again. You know, and I really believe that tourism should think about the next step beyond even sustainability in the regenerative way, thinking about how can tourism play a positive role on solving local problems and issues that destinations have, and be an active partner in that, not a partner who says, I want to build a hotel here and I want to bring so many people in. What do you think? And people will say, well, maybe we don't like it so much, and, you know, nothing will happen. Still, the hotel will be built. This is how we usually involve our locals. But if we think about it when we manage and when we make plans, think about, okay, what can tourism bring to this destination? Is there a problem that it can solve? And that can only be done in cooperation with the local stakeholders, with locals, really locals, who need to be at the same table. Otherwise, we are just occupying the space without a permit. And I think that's a really big problem. And then we advertise our destinations on global markets, showing beautiful pictures, and then people come there, they're totally crowded, and they don't get the experience that they paid for and that we promised to them, because it's not done hand in hand. And that's where we are losing. You know, you can invite someone for the first time with a beautiful picture, and it comes, it's disappointed, he will not come again. So we need to be, you know, sustainability has so many layers. It's so easy to talk about it, but to really think about it and understand it, where where and what we need to do, it's a completely different thing.
I really like that you mentioned this local dimension. For the second round, think about the relationship between local and regional, because I'll challenge you on that one. But you said that you're not, you said, I hope that we are now beyond that point so that we believe that sustainability is an opportunity, creates value. Maybe we should ask people, what is sustainability in tourism? More of an opportunity or more an administrative cost? A bit of exercise, please. Who thinks that it's more of an opportunity? Even better. So you think we're asking the wrong question? Yes. Okay, good point. We'll catch up. I agree, although if you look at the numbers and you ask firms this very question, our performance in Slovenia, we are much worse than the leaders in terms of to what extent do we see opportunity in sustainability. So I would say this is how it should be, but in fact the numbers do not support it. But let's continue. Thank you, Jana, for now. Can I move now to Mr. Slavko Ažman? You come from mobility sector, Porsche Slovenia. And mobility is, let's draw some light on the relationship between the mobility and the tourism sector. If one reads this, analysis in terms of what can have a really profound impact on tourism, is the mobility sector. For example, aviation is part of the EU emissions trading system already. There is almost no impact now on the airfares, but that is expected to change even in the short run, up until 2020-30. So how do you see the role of, and the future indeed, of mobility? Do you see that there could be, given all the electrification and discussion and etc., do you think there could be an impact on affordable and accessible tourism? And I'm targeting here in particular, we have tourism now basically is about moving a lot of people around. Do you think there will be an impact on that? Please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm coming from mobility sector, but I'm also coming from Bled. I live in Bled, so I had the opportunity to walk to this venue. I had a little to run a little bit, because I'm embarrassed to say I managed to show up at the wrong venue. But nevertheless, I think everybody else that had to come to Bled from other places, if you were not accompanied by police cars, you have pretty good idea what the traffic situation in Bled is. Tourism and mobility are really interconnected. They are highly interdependent, and after all, going places, that's basically what tourism is. And I'm really convinced that there's no sustainable tourism without sustainable mobility. So that's really important. And also the question that you asked me about the prices of international flights. I'm not so sure that that's a negative thing. It might be a blessing in disguise, to be honest, because I'm not so sure that the mass tourism that it's dependent on this kind of transportation is really compatible with other more desirable types of tourism. For example, there has been mentioned a special wake-up call. That's for our guests about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Usually that's young tourists coming from bars, and I think that's not exactly something that is really compatible with other types of tourism. Just one of these aspects that probably also has to be considered.
Thank you. And that would indeed be completely compatible with our strategy, wouldn't it, Mr. Frangesh, State Secretary for Tourism? In our strategy, it says green boutiqueness. It seems that everything that the strategy that the Slovene Tourist Organization is doing is pressing on the right buttons, you know, from sustainability, niche, high value added, etc. But do you see that there is a gap between the strategy and the good wishes, the ambition, and the practice that we do? And how could we address that gap? How could we make tourism sector more competitive while staying true to our values? And in particular, if indeed you agree that the strategy and the things that we're doing do go in the right direction, to what extent perhaps it's should be reorganized? Is the governance part of the problem? You know, where do you see the, you know, where are the biggest, where is the weak link of the way how we approach tourism promotion? Please.
Peter, when talking to you, it's always about the ecosystem. You mentioned the good connectivity, the good connections between our businesses. And yes, in Slovenia we have several ecosystems, even in the field of tourism. Every tourist subsector is well organized, either within the chamber, either within the, let's say, professional organizations. We have a very active and massively organized Touristic Association of Slovenia. So this is very important in order to build a culture. Because, you know, Dominic, is it really that sustainability is a standard? Something that everyone bets on? Or should we think that it is actually an advantage we have to build on? Not only because we will be able to attract better guests, but because it is within our culture. So it's not a question of regulations, it is a question of building culture. Hospitality is culture. Inclusiveness is culture. Peace is culture. And what is culture other than set of values we are talking about on this panel? So, and I truly believe Slovenian Tourist Board does a remarkable job. Maya, all compliments to you and your team, to hold the ecosystem, to regional agencies, destination management throughout the country. And when you promote Slovenia on the global stage with your magnificent campaigns, you also promote culture inwards. So I think the most strategic question actually we have ahead of ourselves, and you said it is crucial to ask the right question, is actually, you remember, you know, the titles in global newspapers a few years ago, maybe a decade ago, saying Slovenia, Europe's best kept secret, Europe's most hidden gem. So the question is how to remain a hidden gem while attracting the world to discover our secrets. How to further build our inclusiveness while building our exclusiveness. One of the industry experts before this panel told me an interesting fact. He could sell the room in this hotel for 1,000 euros a night. We are selling it for what? 250 euros a night. And this is also the question that you believe is crucial, and I totally agree with you, the productivity. 8% growth in productivity of the tourist sector, both in companies as well as among self-employed. But still, what? We are a half of the national average, 1/3 of national average when we're talking about the productivity per capita, per employee among the self-employed. So the gap is huge. And I think that a part of the story, and I think we have a tremendous story, and the world is eager to hear it, we have to concentrate on 3 things. First, infrastructure. The last big investment cycle in Slovenian tourism ended nearly 15 years ago. Yes, we've put a lot of measures in place to actually build smaller boutique accommodations throughout the country with the measures recently. And by the way, 65% of the newcomers are visiting those boutique accommodations. But let's look at this beautiful hotel. 20 years, it's a venue of Bled Strategic Forum. And I'm not sure that it changed in these 2 decades. So it's an investment. And please do not count that the state using its funds will incentivize the investment of the private sector. Furthermore, we know that we have a high percentage of state-owned companies in the sector. If they do not invest, please open those hotels as a platform for private initiative. On these panels, a few years ago, we discussed this open question. Why don't you open the national state-owned infrastructure also for a mixed private-public initiative in order to boost the look and feel of those capacities? Second, but what we are preparing, and please remember, in January, Minister was very successful in building 1 billion euros of returnable loans under very good conditions, with moratoriums, good interest rates, to boost investment also in tourist sector. Second, it's about content. And I think that we see a huge improvement with a lot of activities. You know that we are an outdoor megapower. However, those activities can really enrich the visit of our guests. And I think that there is a lot of potential to develop new experiences. So content, it is either nature, outdoor activities, sport, culture, history, food, wine, people and their stories. This is the content we have to have in mind. And I think that looking at the 3 elements I see as essential in this content, we are performing very well, but there is still gap to fill. And the third one, to conclude, and it was mentioned before, people. It is absolutely essential to boost the productivity in the sector in order to attract a talent working in the sector. I was mentioning ecosystem on the beginning, and I truly believe we don't have a strategic research innovation partnership in the sector of tourism. Why do we need it, Mr. Dr. Vosner? Because this is the best possible tool to boost collaboration focused on innovation. And we know that because of sustainability, because of digitalization, because of the need to of everlasting continuation presentation of the user designed and centered experience, we need this innovation within the sector. So I would really call that the sector should organize, that we together find a way to build a strategic research innovation partnership in the tourist sector. Sorry for being long.
Yeah, you'll get a shortened second one. But I couldn't agree with you more. I think the fact that the strategic research innovation partnership has not been approved by the government was a strategic mistake, and I couldn't agree more.
It wasn't a question of approval; it was a question of other formal difficulties.
As the case may be, bottom line, I think it can really contribute. Second comment. I'm afraid that the Slovene Tourist Organization has been too successful, so I think that we're probably not a hidden gem anymore. So I think we'll need to move beyond that. But thank you for that, Mateusz. And I'm really glad that we have Astrid here from the Austrian Tourist Organization. Why? Well, because it seems that you seem to be, because State Secretary said, we have this culture and we have all these organizations, etc. We even have a good strategy, we talk, etc. The problem seems to be that when it comes to action, when it comes to when one has to put the money out, we tend to go each in own direction again. And that's something, and I'm not talking about tourism in particular necessarily here, from what I collaborated with Austrian stakeholders, there is this tendency that once you agree something, you tend to stick to it. How do you do it?
Dobar dan. Jaz sem zelena. Dobrodošli. I will be short and I will be positive, okay? Austria is a very, very successful tourism country. I mean, we are among the most successful. I think we are now in the top 8 in Europe and top 15 in the world. That's great. We have 154 million overnights. Also great. We have new markets, it's rising. Even we had a bad July, it was raining, still it's rising. But that's not enough. It's not only about sustainability, but in Austria we have actually a strategy, yes, but strategy are only good when they are implemented, because otherwise in every country we have a lot of papers. And we are talking a lot about problems. We talk a lot about sustainability we have to do to implement. And now we have a huge actually participation process because we have a new government in Austria. But it's not changing so much, so that's a good thing. But we have a huge participation process for the framework of the tourism strategy. That doesn't mean that we have to follow it. We are only a small part, but the framework is about employees, workforce. It's about AI strategy for whole Austria tourism. Because workforce, if we sell our nice pictures worldwide and if we welcome our guests, but we have no labor and no employees who are friendly and work in tourism with passion, we will lose. In Austria, our salaries rised 37% the last 3 years in tourism. Our costs of energy are tremendous. So we have many overnights, but the hotels itself and all the industry does not earn that much as it should. So we have to be very cautious about overnight stays, and we are not going into our press conference and talking about wonderful overnights or records. We are not allowed to say record anymore. Even not our.
Who said it? Who said it?
Even our state secretary, we don't do it, our regions don't do it, our destinations, because we have to be very cautious with this word. So, but still we have the strategy process with the participation of 9 regions. We have more than 200 destinations in Austria. We have actually 90,000 stakeholders when it comes to tourism. So we have a lot to cover. And when this Vision T is done, the regions and we as Austria Tourism are the coordinators to implement it. But as you can imagine, we are a federalistic state. Every region has its own tourism law. Every region has its own city tax, and so on and so on. But still, we in the last 2 years, we really implemented a few projects on a national level with all the 9 regions and with all our stakeholders in the back, and that makes us very proud. One of them is the gastronomic culinary strategy. You have it for a longer time, but I don't know how you did it. We really involved all farmers, winemakers, restaurants, cooks, chefs, hoteliers, regions, destinations, and it took us 1.5 years, but still we stand behind it and we receive very good feedback, but it takes so long, and now we are in the implementation process. So I think the key is the collaboration, not to take us so important, just work on it and implement those things. And we have many, many platforms to talk to our regions and to talk to our destinations. We have a destination network, we have a regions network, and we as a Austria Tourism are for the orchestra, like you said, somebody has to orchestrate it or lead it, even though they are not my shareholders, and I'm not the shareholder of the regions. I receive the money from the Ministry of Economy and from the Chamber of Commerce, and the regions have their own budget. They can do whatever, but when we bundle our budgets, we are stronger, and that's the way of Austria and how we try to do it now, even though it's a challenge.
Excellent. I think on gastronomy, etc., as a Slovene tourist, I think we're doing quite well. I think that's something that so it's not like, I said, we can do stuff, but we can do better. And probably one of the path, one of the things on that path is, I think that at least that goes in my conclusion, at least, no overnight stays records, forbidden word. That's very good, because that changes the thinking, and I think I appreciate that very much.
And also maybe by law, since last year we have a measurement of tourism acceptance. Now we got the first result, so only 7% in Austria of the locals are against tourism, only 7%. We renew this measurement every year, so also we can pull it down on the regions, and we know where it's more, where it's less. Sustainability is a standard and should be a standard. We talk about it, and we have to talk, but we have to talk about it positive. For many people, sustainability is a negative word. It's not negative. It should be a standard. I mean, Austria, we are in the 3rd place in Europe when it comes to Sustainable Travel Index. So we are on the right path. But we have to include the locals. There are many initiatives in Austria to include the locals with employee cards, with really incentives for employees, not only for the guests, but for employees. That's also the key to include on a social way the inhabitants. Yeah.
Which links very nicely to what Jana said before, which I will challenge now. You mentioned, it's this local level and the perception and attitudes. And I'll use the analogy from the food processing industry, right? Here in Slovenia, we have these stars in food processing industry, which are small firms, super successful, with differentiated products, it's through the roof. And I call them Tina Mazes of our industry. But that's not enough if you want to really pull your whole country forward. It's not enough to have super champions if they're rare. And that I think is one of the challenges for tourism as well. We obviously, as everyone does, we have superstar tourism providers. But how do we go beyond that? This is not a one-off. How do we enlarge even on a local level? Probably we have very good examples. But how do we enlarge? How do we go beyond that? How do we make this value on the destination level, on the regional level? And that's something that you said before. We're not attentive enough about what's going on at the local level. Although at the local level, my feeling is, tell me if I'm wrong, that we're actually the relationships there, at least in Slovenia, are quite positive. And I think the attitudes on the local level towards tourism are, I would assume, are quite positive. Might be wrong though, but isn't it the case that we should do more to kind of connect it on a broader level? And I think Austria here serves as a good example, because this multi-level coordination approach that they have an inbuilt one, that's something that we don't. How would you say that?
Yeah, well, I agree we are not yet there with the problem. First, you just answered that question, but I was still surprised the other day I walked in Ljubljana on Petkošek, and there is already a graffiti tourists go out. So obviously those are signs.
Where in Ljubljana?
In Ljubljana. So
Okay.
yeah, you know, we don't have the really big problem, but you can still see some. Really, I have a friend living in Bled, and you know, every time going to Ljubljana, she stands in a queue, and it's not sure if she will be able to get on the bus from Ljubljana to Bled in the summertime, and so on. So this is again back to infrastructure. So we have indications that there can be problems, and we need to be super cautious about that and have them in mind and look into them. Not only just, we also do through Slovenia Green surveys between inhabitants, and we measure that temperature where it is, but still, do we do enough? Do we react enough? That's, I think, still a different question. But when it comes to integration on all the levels, we are talking about values today and how sustainability is our value. If that would really be completely the case, we would not have to talk about why don't all the businesses go into sustainability and follow that path. So obviously,
well, some people think we're talking about the wrong thing.
No, it is. I believe that I completely agree with Dominic.
No, I'm challenging because I think let's go in that direction. I completely agree that sustainability is a standard, and we should embed it more as a standard and not so much as a choice. You know, that is the fact, because otherwise, if it's a choice, then I say, oh well, I don't want to engage in all the bureaucracy. I don't want to change things. You know, it's okay. I barely already. You said it yourself. You know, the margins, the earnings in tourism sector are not big. So why invest again in something which I don't know what kind of return on investment it will bring back to me? So it should be a standard. It should be more integrated in, I don't know, our categorization. It is very much embedded in all the tenders when somebody wants some kind of access to funding and so on. This should be probably even more. We should work on values, which was said before. I completely agree with that. Obviously, our values are not there where we want them. Otherwise, we would not be talking about that. So that's one thing. And the other thing is like really integration. And the third thing is I always think that if you start to put so much legislation, like for example, the EU directives on green transition and green claims, which didn't come true, sometimes I tend to feel like that, like that kid in the class who is creating problems, and that because one kid in the problem is creating problems, that the whole class would get punished. That analogy. And sometimes you feel that way, that a lot of destinations, businesses are doing it right. They're not doing the greenwashing. They're doing it right. They're following the certification programs which are looking into things, and things are solid. But, of course, some people, there is abuse of that. And because of that, everybody now needs to completely change the way of, when it comes to certifying and so on. So this is, and the other thing in this aspect, which I think is super important, is instead of maybe, always using the stick, to use the carrot more often. And if you build enough positive motivation about the goal that you want to achieve, it will be much easier to achieve it. Like, for example, in Slovenia Green, the good effect was like, when we started and we tried to bring the destinations in, at one point it changed, and it was like, if I'm not in, I'm out. So, it builds so much momentum around it and make it so appealing and so much more to link it to so many other benefits, also promotional benefits and so on. Then people start to look at it from a different angle. It becomes a motivation of something, okay, yeah, everybody's doing it. I should look into it. Maybe it's not such a big deal, such a problem, because so many times, especially businesses was like, I'm not even going to look into that. It's too much. And there is hard to build that momentum of being,
willing to do an extra step. So it has more layers. It has like things that we can do, it things that how we build our culture, how we integrate that as a standard in our operation, and how we motivate our businesses and destinations to be part of that and make it like super attractive in that space. You know, I'm always saying that sustainability is not sexy. It should be more we should present it as a sexy option and more appealing one. And we are not able to do that. It's still like facts and papers to write and so on. So, you know, just twist it a little bit, maybe it can change things.
Let me build on, towards, you know, the optimistic scenario. If there is one industry in Slovenia that understands the importance of sustainability, it's tourism. So before we said no overnight state records anymore, perhaps, you know, the next conclusion is sustainability as a choice, no more. Right? I mean, maybe we should stop. Wait, stop. Maybe that's one of the things.
I agree.
You know. Okay, good. We have two conclusions because that's something I need to do at the end. So it's very helpful. Thank you. If we concluded this on sustainability front, can I now move to the digital front? Astrid, back to you. You know, in all, you know, your high rankings and performance, what does digital transformation play in what your tourism providers are going after, how understand what's going on, how do you help them out, to what extent collaborative models are important on that front? Please.
On the one hand, we are responsible to communicate Austria worldwide, but on the other hand, the last years we actually have our own Bereich?
Field.
Old area. Only focusing on innovation, digitalization, sustainability, and green transition to help our tourism partners out. So we have many platforms to do that. First of all, we founded a data space, for example. We collect data from many businesses to help our tourism partners in some cases. For example, if there's a hotspot, Instagrammable hotspot, and the region doesn't know why, we helped them out to find out why. It was actually an easy thing because it only was the bus was wrong in the wrong times. So now they have not this problem that many tourists are on this spot. So with these small little things, we help the tourism branch. We have a huge data dashboard for our observing our guest motives. Why do they come? When do they come? We focus on a year-round destination strategy now, so we do not implement winter campaigns or summer campaigns. We are 5 days on. Why? Because in our off-peak season, we have now approximately 25% already of our guests, so it's quite good and it's rising. And that's why we are focusing more on spring and autumn and not on our winter and summer. My cable car and ski lift companies are not very amused about that, but we do that because it helps us to balance also the tourism from different countries. That's why it's also very important to not only to do communication in Europe, but also in India, in China, in US market, because they travel at different times and you don't have them all at one place. That's the one thing. So we do a lot in tourism, in platforms. We do a lot in green transition support. We are one of the first countries in Europe that we certify destinations with our Umweltzertifikat. We have now 11 destinations certified and many others. But we are more responsible to communicate that we are good, this positive thing. Not greenwashing, but somehow we have to have those best practices to show it to the world. And that's what we are doing together with our branch. And the third big thing is AI strategy for the tourism. That we help, we did a lot. We do every week like knowledge transfer with platforms. But for example, we implemented an AI avatar. It was actually a pilot project. For example, tourism regions can use this AI avatar. Instead of a person sitting there the whole day, the AI avatar would answer all questions. Now we tested it in the first regions, and the translation is in 170 languages, so it's really good. So with those small bits and pieces, but the regions and the hotels have to understand what we do. We cannot do on theoretical basis and on our meta basis. So that's why we are going very deeply into the speak easy and do it easy, because AI for us, it's all overwhelming. And a hotel has no time to do everything, everyday AI challenges or whatever. So we have to help them. That's our duty and our task.
The reason why I have this face is because these are the kind of problems the tourism industry was trying to solve via the Strategic Research Innovation Partnership in 5 plus years ago, great. Just to say, these are the practical things that, jointly everybody benefits when a country systemically goes in that direction. I'd love to ask you more on AI, but I'm afraid we don't have time. Just to say that all the panelists will be with us, will stay with us so that we can ask further questions, I hope. Because I think these kind of things are really, can be inspirational for our future thinking. Which brings me to our future thinking, Mr. Franges. We are now at the cusp of, the EU is negotiating the next financial perspective. Slowly, Slovenia will start to prepare and think about what our priorities will be. What is the kind of vision that you will put on the table if you'll have a chance? When I mean by that is if these discussions will start soon enough, because we have elections next year. What would be things that you would put on the table, and also so what will you do, but also what would you say other stakeholders must do, and what the government will do to encourage kind of concerted actions of all of us? And please be short.
Yes.
Sorry.
That one's hard. Dr. Vosner, you know that I consider your brain and brilliant analytic skills as a national treasure. So it is not what I will do, because with the presentation of the development report, you've set what our priorities should be. It is the question, how shall we do it? And in terms, since there was a talk about digitalization, two things. You know that we don't score well in usage of advanced digitalization tools, big data, cloud infrastructure, etc. I'm really proud that Slovenian Tourist Board, together with Ministry, managed to present the National Information Core for the big data creation and collection, which will enable similar impacts as we saw in Austria, so better management, better building harmony also within local communities with managing the tourist flows. However, yes, there are a lot of potentials to build on digital experiences furthermore. I'm really proud that we have digital giants like Arctur, for example, who is selling information, digital infrastructure, data collection and data management as a Slovenian digital product globally. But I'm also very proud of the local communities that understand that, digital should unite with the analog. And I would really like to put an example of Maribor, my home city, who experienced a really amazing growth in recent years because the city is building itself and the community around the tourism. And the products we present to our guests are foremost the products for our local community experience that is there for the local people. And it is just a step to invite then guests to enjoy what we have to offer and the privilege we have to experience it. So I think I didn't answer the very complex question. However, I think I should stop to prevent to being too long.
Okay. The discussion will be long anyway, and there is a lot of uncertainty on EU level anyway. So yeah, there will be time. But nonetheless, Mr. Rajman, with regard to in the field of mobility, Eduardo in the beginning mentioned seamless mobility. That really matters when a tourist comes to a place like this, that he can go around. What would you recommend to the government they should do, but also to the tourist industry? What kind of solutions, perhaps, something practical, perhaps not something that we can, introduce in 5 years' time, but things that are, that can create value even in the short term. What would be your recommendation?
Well, definitely the way sustainable mobility, but I think we also need to define the sustainability. At least for me, sustainability is not, I know, counting of gender-neutral toilets and putting them into some reports or something like that about statistics. It's really about making this business model sustainable in the sense that it is sustainable in the economic way. It can provide, it can generate profits in the long run without creating problems for the society and for other stakeholders. And with this understanding, I think it should be understandable that that's the opportunity, and that's probably the only way that we can aspire. But to be more concrete, what we can do in the term of transportation, definitely in Slovenia we are in the unfortunate situation that our public transportation system is not very effective. But to be honest, it's hard to make it this way because of the way we live in Slovenia. Actually, there are no major cities with millions of inhabitants, and basically we decided this way. We wanted to live deliberately this way with job opportunities also in other regions, not only in the main city, and that's why it is really. It's more difficult, and it is not easy to adopt recipes from abroad. So we really need to develop our own solutions, at the local, at the regional, and also on the national level. Really concrete plans, but on the other hand, the municipalities are. We have 200 of them, or a little bit more, and that means that they are really small. There are maybe 5-6 people working for the local government, and including the mayor and the secretary. And you cannot expect that they will develop really sophisticated mobility strategies. But on the other hand, they know the community, they know people, they know every problem they have in the local community, and they can contribute and make these generic plans a little bit more adapted to their needs. So my advice would really be the government, I think, should really provide not only financial support for these things to happen, but also practical support in terms of know-how. Actually, because we have to combine everything from public transportation combination actually with micromobility, with many hidden gems actually are accessible by bike, or at least by electric bike, and this is everything that we have to take into account. But there is probably no way around electrification of personal cars. This fleet has to be electrified, and but on the other hand, there are some great opportunities actually in this field, because as you all know, the renewable energies have also their problems. When the sun is shining, there's a lot of energy, but there's a problem if there's not enough energy, but there's also a problem if there's a lot of it. And tourism is actually at its peak in summer when there's really plenty of energy, and if the visitors would come by electric cars, and if we would be able to provide them with the necessary smart charging infrastructure that can be adapted, that would probably be a good solution. But yeah, there are probably also some other things that can be done. There are some, yeah. I also want to be.
It's the clock changed color, so.
Yeah. Definitely.
Sorry for interrupting you, but I really liked what you said. It was what we decided for, in terms of public transport and the way how we do mobility. And I think I think it should be said in exactly that way, because it was a wrong choice, I think, for many reasons, not least for tourism, but there are many other dimensions and consequences, and I think that's something that will need to be rethought. It won't be within this fora that the kind of systemic solutions will be sought, but I think it's another opportunity for growth, value creation, because exactly as Mr. Rajman said, we need to find our own solutions, and those solutions can be sold to other parts of the world. Right, so the color changed, the clock changed color, but nonetheless, Eduardo, you started this panel, and I would like to wrap it up on your part as well. You are sitting at the EU level. What are the things you would argue are the things that we should be doing together so that we would be able to better target? And the word I would underline in particular is to future-proof what we are all doing, because I think from the top, if you will, even even simple things as analytics and looking where one is, what the future scenarios and projections are, that's incredibly valuable. So what would you say, what we can do better together? Slovenia, Austria, for example, is, the collaborative, cross-border collaborations, promotion like that, these are, I think, excellent examples of how we can be in a win-win world. So just one last ask. Please wrap it up on an optimistic note. That's what we need. Yeah.
Well, maybe let's start. Look, I will compare it with someone climbing a beautiful mountain here in Slovenia. Okay, if we focus too much on the difficulties of the climb, you forget why you are climbing the mountain, the star that is guiding you, and your motivation to travel or to do that hike. So while focusing on the difficulties is important to solve them, we also have to inspire. We still have definitely a sector of people, of peace, and of happiness, and we should spread those values among everything. But since in the question you sent me, you say, please, and in the briefing this morning, say, what are the biggest priorities at the European level? So we talk about all of them already: digital and green transition, strategic coordination and governance, connectivity and cross-border mobility, and maybe a little parenthesis here to say that 3 of the main sponsors of the Bled Strategic Forum are Microsoft, are Novartis, and are Porsche. Microsoft will tell us how are we going to work and how are we going to probably travel through digitalization. Novartis is going to tell us how long we're going to live and, to be able to travel. And Porsche is going to tell us how are we going to move around, in which kind of means, and how fast. So my appeal to this room and to many others is to open our rooms. We're preaching always to believers. We're talking people that, understand what we're talking about. We need to be confronted. We need to be also say, no, you're wrong. Eduardo, you're wrong. This is not going to work out because the mobility sector is actually working in the opposite direction of what you're saying. So I think we have a problem of being too exclusive, and we have to be very inclusive in tourism and start opening in a multi-sector and multi-layer. More priorities also resilience and support for recovery. We are not out of the woods. There will be something happening in the next 6 months and the next 6 months, so we also have to be prepared. inclusive consultation and stakeholder engagement. Maybe the two things that I would like to remind, this is on behalf of our colleagues of the European Commission, and there is like a new sustainable tourism strategy undergoing. So for the first time, these should be coordinated from Brussels. That doesn't mean that they are going to prescribe to the member states what they should do, but at least it will be like a blueprint for all of us, to give direction. And last but not least, I think there is no more hope that see this room, full of people engaging, the Bled Strategic Forum like flourishing, Slovenia dying of success, if you want. Okay, at least, this is a great start. Now we just have to engage more with our locals, engage more with our entrepreneurs, with our governance, and with everybody on politics. We always have to point politics when they do something wrong, but there's a lot of positive done in this country and beyond. Positive on that. And Peter, last but not least, of course, it's up to us to make the change. I hate people saying someone who should do it for me, and not. I think everybody has something to say and something to do in your little, medium, or big role. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll just do the last sentence. Before I do, just don't stand up, because Martina will take over, because you will have the incentive to don't. I won't do a proper closure in terms of too much substance. There were some things that I think we should really note down in terms of the records and sustainability. I propose we discuss those over more at the terrace, but I will just, based on what Eduardo just now said, and combined with what Minister said in the beginning, he said, let's be good and true to each other. We add Eduardo's, we open up, and as Minister said, all will be good. Thank you very much.
Yes, a big round of applause and a big thank you to Dr. Peter Vosner and all our amazing panelists. We are actually continuing this discussion, and we are continuing it with you, our dear audience, because now it's time for you to speak. Just one little thing, I would like to start with our Anna Jemečpik from Slovenian Tourist Board, to just remind us what's the inclusion or support, what's the attitude of Slovenian residents towards tourism, because Astrid, we have ladies bringing the microphone, thank you. Astrid told us how's that in Austria, but I would like to just remind everybody, how are we doing on that in Slovenia?
Thank you, Martina.
It's working.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's working. Great. Thank you for letting me tell this. So last year, we at the Slovenian Tourist Board did a survey, a resident sentiment index, that showed that only 4% of domestic population in Slovenia could be considered tourismophobic. So that's a really good sign. But that's a really good sign for us, and we actually do have a 71% net growth support index. So that's really positive, and we hope that we will keep that and we will continue working on that. But additionally to that, our statistical office will start including, or already has started including, a few additional questions on a quarterly basis. So the domestic population that travels, we have a survey on that based quarterly, and there will be some questions added on how the domestic population feels about tourism. So we will have that even more frequently, and we will try to include that in our national intelligence system for tourism, of course.
Thank you. Okay, so yes, thanks. Now we have maybe 10-15 more minutes for the discussion. If anybody in audience, okay, I already see the first hand over there. Our kind assistants will bring you the microphone. Please stand up, introduce yourself, and let us know if you have a comment, a question. And let's keep it brief. Let's try to be inside 1 or 2 minutes per person. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Igor Jurisic, coming from Hosteling International Slovenia, so the network of youth hostels. And talking about challenges in the future, I believe we have elephant in the room, but we haven't addressed it. Namely, our leaders, not long time ago, decided to spend 5% of GDP for defense. It means in case of Slovenia, if you compare with last year, it will be over 2.4 billion more, or 1,200 euros per person. So this expenditure will certainly influence the purchasing power of the people, possibilities to invest in tourism and so on. Surely, if you take from one side, you must, if you give to one side, you must take from other. So I'm asking Mr. Eduardo, Mr. Eduardo Santander, if there is any European strategy already how to overcome this challenge, because as I said, if you divide this rise to all Slovenian citizens, it's 1,200 euros per year. If you divide it to those who contribute, so those who are employed, it's 3,000 euros per year. So 2 salaries per year will go to defense, so people will spend less for other things. And tourism is normally the first what we cut, even if we need it more than some other things. So if you have any strategies, please present it. If not, just present the plans how you will challenge this big problem. Thank you.
So just for information, I don't sit in NATO meetings like deciding anything. So it would be interesting though, like to see. Now, I understand where you're coming from, and like the budget obviously is an issue. Also, where it's taken from one place, it's not put in another place. I guess so that we have to consider European tourism as the maximum exponent or expression of our freedoms. The European project is still in a baby state. We are young, we are fragile, we are vulnerable, and we're trying our best on this very little story to keep this peace project, and this is coming as a cost. We thought everything was up and running, and but there's been a couple of wake-up calls, and our government, for good or bad, have to make tough decisions of whether we want to keep this peace process protected from some threats that are there or not, and this is having obviously the consequence of shifting budgets. I think though, and it sounds philosophical, it sounds naive, but tourism is a huge force of soft diplomacy, of understanding, of people-to-people dialogue. The more people travel, the more people understand that there's no need for, sometimes armed conflicts or, or confrontation or anything else. And it sounds a little bit naive and philosophical because, it's easier said than done, but it's true. We come, if we look at Slovenia, at the past of this country, this is a successful story. Tourism paved also the road, for ex-Yugoslavia to become the place, the beautiful destinations they are now. In my own country, the Basque country, back then when I was a child, nobody wanted to visit. It's one of the most visited regions in Spain. Colombia, one of the other places that was a no-go, and now it's like a place, to go to. You see, tourism has a transformative power of making people see that things go beyond armed conflict, beyond trade wars and so on. So we should keep this going and not losing. Okay, we were discussing, Astrid and others yesterday over dinner, that the budgets remain the same sometimes, but the inflation star or defense takes part of our cake. But it's not how much you get; it's what you do with what you have. And this is very important, talking also about your presentation, Peter, because it's about productivity and yield. From little budgets, you can make a lot of things if they are well managed. And, the Secretary said when, but I know that Slovenia is also not having the biggest of the budgets for tourism. It's not in that you are not ranking the top 10 of budget, but nevertheless, you are a successful story. So, sorry if it doesn't answer completely your question, but the whole point is that we have to keep this hopeful and grateful also path of what we have achieved in such a short period of history.
Thank you very much. We had another hand already here, Mr. Černjak. Yes, was already before, and then we're going to the lady. Yes? Okay.
Thank you very much for the invitation to Bled Summit, to Maya Pak first of all, and I would like to extend my congratulations for this really very special event. One and only in the region. My name is Gordana Plamenac, and I represent Danube Competence Center. And this is an international organization covering all Danube countries. To add on to the fact what we do, and we do project development, enhanced cooperation, promotion, and so on, managed Roman Emperor's route and the Danube wine route, I would like to point out something that we missed to mention today. And these are, with exception of joint initiatives between countries like Croatia, Austria, and Slovenia, we missed to mention what do we do on more vaster level, such as, for instance, what we do. But we also have 14 countries in the Roman Emperor's route. Why am I mentioning these routes? Because there are 48 routes certified by the Council of Europe, European cultural routes. Many of them cross all the countries here also. These routes are actually the opportunity to release over-tourism from some destinations. They are also possibility to enhance less known destinations, hidden destinations, as we mentioned today. They are also great opportunity to contribute to sustainability in overall sense, and they are also contributing to something so-called regenerative tourism. I would really not take more of your time. I just want to say that I very often quote Talmud, saying that the quickest way to reach your final goal is to change the way of thinking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Because we are very short on time, we're going to take 3 more short questions or comments. Okay, we have one here, then one over there. We're coming to you next. Mr. Czerniak, please.
Hvala lepa, Dominik Černjak. My mission in my life is to create sustainable tourist products with high added value. And if you want to do this, you need to learn, follow, listen. And I need to say that this panel is one of the most interesting panels in the last 20 years, especially thanks spiced by the Peter. Thank you very much. And the question, I have 2 questions for Mrs. Astrid. First is, you said on the press conferences, you're not talking about the records. I think this is a very good idea, and I support it. And my question is, what are you talking about on these press conferences? And the second question, you said that you are supporting very much the small micro-tourism, which is the base of actually in Europe, mostly of all the industries. How do you support them, or actually what are your tasks, how to support these micro companies? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Of course, I'm talking about figures at the press conference. Why we don't use the word record? Because we recognized in our tourism acceptance studies, when we talk about records, the locals feel even more offended. Oh, now again, more tourists will come, and now she said US tourists, we have plus 20%. That's why I think with small little things and tricks you can a bit be more sensitive towards the locals. That's the first thing. And now we try, even statistics Austria, here you are statistics Slovenia is also here, I think. They make a press conference and a press release always with the headline records. We are on it to slow it down a bit. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, we think when we always talk in theoretical thing, that was before I started this job, nobody understands us, even no micro companies. They have nothing out of us. I mean, we are financed from ministry. This is tax money, so they have to feel us. And that's why our mission is to to give value to the tourism partners. It doesn't matter how small they are. And that's why we have different platforms for different target groups, for hoteliers, for incomers, for travel agencies, for thermal spas, because everybody has different has a different approach and a different task in this whole ecosystem. And that we do either with I don't know, with data stewards platforms, with the sustainability ranger, if somebody's interested in that, with AI challenges or AI knowledge transfer. So small and little bits with this department I told before to support our economy as far as we can.
Thank you very much. We will count this as 2 questions because there were, and the clock is turning light again. We have one more comment or question over there, please.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Maritka Rangus. I come from the Faculty of Tourism, University of Maribor. And I would like to thank you all for your insightful speeches, comments, evaluations. And it's all too overwhelming to address them all at once. But I would like to relate one thing that's perhaps the most relevant for the role of the faculty where I come from. Namely, you mentioned several times the need for, people who know how to do things. Mr. Santander, you mentioned, it doesn't really matter how many resources do we have or if we get less budget, but what do we do with it? So we have, and on the other hand, you mentioned the shortages in the workforce. We are overcoming those in a different way. So I would like to hear your thoughts on how do you feel about the role of the universities, which are primarily there to train and educate future workers in tourism, provide knowledge, provide also experience and resources, and of course help for the challenges that tourism needs to overcome. But on the other hand, we hear that, the people maybe are too skilled or too trained or too many graduates in this area. So I'm wondering, in your opinion, what's the proper relationship, between the skills, the training, the knowledge we need to provide for overcoming the future challenges in tourism? Thank you.
We do actually a lot of cooperations with universities in tourism, but also with tourism schools, because I'm of the opinion that the passion is not there anymore. Only 2% are working in tourism after they're finished. In Austria Tourism, we have per year approximately 40 trainees from faculties for tourism, and many of our employees are going to university to tell them how great it is to work in tourism, to tell them how the tourism ecosystem is working. And that's why we support the universities a lot, but we also take know-how from the universities because, for example, when I talk about AI, you have sometimes better know-how than we have. So it's an exchange. I think it's a process like anything else, but this exchange between young people and the tourism system itself, and people who like to serve people and who like to be a receptionist. And in Austria, I don't know how it's Slovenia, but the appreciation for a waiter and the chef was not that high, to be honest. And actually, we overslept this period. In Spain, it's a bit different. In Italy, it's also when you come to Italy, bella, ragazza, pasta, and so on. And in Austria, it's not that anymore. So we have to get along with it, but we have to take the young people with us. That's why the cooperation with these universities is for us very, very important. I don't know what from EU level.
I just want to add, obviously retention policies in tourism have been a big, how can I say, failure? Yeah, that's a word to think. As you know, tourism is the industry that actually provides all the skills to people, languages, accountancy, dealing with, customers, whether it's front desk, back desk, front office, whatever it is, and then we let them go. The reason is not other, that lacking opportunities of growth and payment, like you mentioned it, like it's not an attractive industry because, with the salary of a waiter or the salary of a receptionist, you cannot make a living. And therefore, we let them go with a lot of sadness. But, it's something that it's been addressed by the member states. It's on the top of the agenda of this new European Commissioner. And I'm very, very hopeful that it should be addressed. By the way, we also, I think we cooperate with 24 universities at ETC level. We have trainees. And yeah, you know, of course, I agree with Astrid that there is not that huge motivation to stay. And so, but this is up to us to change it. I work as a student as in a bar, as a ski instructor, tour guide with TUI. So, you know, like I really loved it, what I was doing, you know, and this has to be also transmitted also to a career path, and this is where we lack. So maybe, because when I talk to universities, they always accuse us, you're not attractive enough, but also the university should also like give them a little bit of a better understanding of what the possibilities are, because tourism is very transversal, and everybody thinks about tourism as a waiter or receptionist or, you know, or the ciao bella cameriere in thing. Well, tourism goes beyond that, much beyond, because of the layers of complexity. It's hospitality, it's accommodation, it's transportation, it's policy too. You know, all the, you know, the feeling of the dish, you know, that we want to do. So yeah, it's a complex thing. But if and you know, following Peter's data there, it's one of the things that we have to keep an eye on and invest more, definitely.
Thank you very much. We will wrap up this part of the discussion. Of course, we will continue the discussion just in a more informal setting, because we already have a light lunch waiting for us just beyond these doors. And of course, you're all welcome to join us. Our panelists, our speakers will be with you as well. So you can approach them, ask all your questions, and share more comments there. Let's give one more big round of applause to our panelists, please. And basically, everything's been said. We are continuing our conversation outside. Thank you all for being here today, and we will see you next year.